You know it's hot in California when you can't even shoot a video outside because the camera overheats. Either way, guys, we're gonna talk about some car news today because there's been a lot of interesting stuff in the news that I like to touch on, not just your basic stuff. So number one, we're gonna talk about the FCA and Renault partnership. That's number one. Number two, we're gonna talk about Formula One because this weekend we had an insane race with a very controversial result. So we're gonna talk about that too. Also, we're gonna talk about, are we really getting a 458 with a gated manual? I guess we are. We'll talk about it right now. And then there's a surprise question for you all. So let's start from the beginning and let's talk about this damn FCA Renault partnership. A couple of weeks ago, in most of these news outlets about cars, news started to surface about a partnership and a merger between FCA and Renault. FCA, for those of you who don't know, it's Fiat Chrysler Automobile Group. And Renault, it's obviously Renault, right? Automaker from France. They said that they were going to merge together and that would basically save them $6 billion in R&D together, and that would make them together build more than 8.7 million cars a year. That puts them in the third spot, right underneath VW and Toyota. FCA right now, it's the 8th largest car maker in the world. Again, this move would have taken them to number 3, just right off the bat. With savings of over $6 billion, this gigantic conglomerate would have made a lot of sense because you're saving $6 billion just of R&D a year. That's insane for both companies. This was such a good deal that even when they announced it, without saying that this was happening, when it was announced to the press, FCA stock went up 10% and Renault stock went 14% up. So it made sense in a lot of ways. It was going to be a deal worth anywhere between 35 and 40 billion dollars combined. So how come it didn't happen? Why did everything go wrong? Let me tell you right now. And let's talk about bad partners on this one. Renault owns 40% of Nissan, and in exchange, Nissan owns 15% of Renault. Mind you, Nissan is the second largest shareholder in Renault after the French government. And the problem came about when Nissan found out about this merger on the news. It's like Renault didn't even tell him, like your best friend that you worked forever with doesn't even tell you, hey, by the way, we might just join with another massive car maker and we gotta share our technology, our proprietary software, all of the good stuff. And Nissan didn't like that at all. They didn't want to share any of their intellectual property. They didn't want to share their proprietary software. They didn't want to share anything with them. So they were like, let me look at this deal, analyze it, and then we'll talk about it. The moment that happened and the moment FCA realized that Nissan was putting a stop to it, FCA completely said, you know what? Forget about the deal. So this whole deal that was going to be worth 35 to 40 billion dollars, that was going to make 8.7 million cars a year, was going to make him the third largest car maker in the world, didn't happen because Nissan wasn't comfortable. And at that point, FCA completely pulled the deal from under the rug and said, we're not doing this anymore. Now, to everyone's surprise goes, well, what's the big deal with Nissan? Why don't they want to jump in? What exactly do they want? And I don't know if you guys remember, but the CEO of Nissan was put in jail in November. Then he came out, and then back in April, for different charges, they put him back in jail. The reason why they put him in jail is because this shady guy, the CEO, these are the charges against him, was basically funneling money through outside projects to himself. What do I mean by that? For example, let's say that someone comes up to me and I'm Nissan and says, hey, we should develop this pickup truck that's really cool. And I'm gonna get 5 bids from the best guys that develop pickup trucks. And all of those bids turn out that they'd never pick the right one or the best one that would benefit the company the most. The only ones that they picked was the ones that would benefit the CEO directly. So of course, Mr. Carlos Ghosn, I think that's his name, went to jail. And now FCA doesn't want anything to do with a company that's ruled and moved by a guy like that. And obviously right now he's not in power, but they don't want anything to do with all of that shady business. Or also, they could be doing this and pulling that deal off the table to show Nissan that they don't have any power in this play. Anyways, I think it's really interesting how Renault didn't mention that deal to Nissan, being that they own so much of Nissan and that Nissan owns so much of them. So with that said, what do you guys think? What do you think is the exact reason why FCA doesn't want to move forward? Is it because of the corruption charge, or is it to get leverage right now in a deal further down the line? I actually think it's second. So let's see what happens. Now let's jump into F1 because over the weekend we had an incredible race. This was the 6th race of the year. It was in Montreal. And for those of you who are not caught up with Formula One, here's what's happening. Mercedes won the number 1 and number 2 spot in the first 4 races. Right now the championship is already basically going to Mercedes and Hamilton individually and Mercedes as a group. No one's happy about that because they've won 4 or 5 years straight. I'm sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head right now. So everyone is a little fed up with Mercedes winning all the time. So over the weekend, we had a lot of accidents, which Hamilton hits his car. Bottas kind of fucked up, and they fucked up the strategy with him. In qualifiers, they only let him put out one lap to see where he would land, and then he landed on 6th place, I believe, with his time. So it was not a very good show for Mercedes. But Ferrari was finally coming into itself. So Ferrari won pole position with Sebastian Vettel, and they were going to start in number 1. Now, the race starts like that, and they go on. So Vettel is number 1, Hamilton's number 2, and then we have the famous incident. Around lap 40-something, Hamilton gets really close to Vettel's back and starts putting pressure on him. And out of nowhere, in one of those fast turns before hitting the walls of champions, my man Vettel loses control of his car. He goes through the grass and re-enters the track right in front of Hamilton. Literally, Hamilton's reaction was incredible. And I know that a lot of people are saying, yeah, well, what else should it be done? He stepped on the brakes and made Vettel's car fit right in front of him, because otherwise, in my opinion, Vettel was going to crush his own car and Hamilton's car, and both of them would have been out of the race because they were so far ahead of everybody else. They would be the only two that would have to pay the consequences at that point. So Hamilton lets him go in front of him, or however you want to see it. Vettel gets in front of him and keeps going. And after a few laps, they announce that they're giving Ferrari a penalty, a 5-second penalty for doing that. A lot of people are wondering, was the rule implemented in the right way? They say that as long as you don't re-enter the track into the racing lane immediately and let whoever's in front of you just go past you, you should be fine. But in this case, Vettel had nowhere to go but to keep pushing the car forward. And that's the controversy right now, because they're saying there's nothing that could have been done by either driver. That should have been the right place for the car to land and to keep going on the race. So Ferrari fans are saying that they stole the race from Vettel. I personally will tell you this. I think there was one mistake made between number 1 and number 2, between Vettel and Lewis. And the only one who made a mistake was Vettel. And that mistake cost him 5 seconds according to the rule book. If there's no action, there's no reaction, there's no consequence. And in my opinion, there was an action. Vettel fucked up and came off the track because of the pressure that Lewis was giving him and putting on him. Therefore, I think, and I know I'm gonna get fucking booed and fuck you don't know anything about F1, and this is all irrelevant because I'm not saying I'm right, but I think the rule was applied in the right way. Should they let him race and forget about these fucking rules and whatnot? Absolutely. It does make for the sport to be more exciting. I mean, when Vettel re-entered the track and he got in front of Hamilton, I screamed and I got up and whatnot. But there could have also been the other side where Hamilton accelerates, both cars are completely destroyed, and both people are out of the race. So, are we gonna let him race? Yeah, but to me, to be fair and to be honest, I think Hamilton deserved that win. Whether he got it the way he wanted it or not, that's a whole different story. But I think he deserved that win. And obviously the after of the race was really funny. The post-racing interviews and all that stuff, because Vettel just stormed into the office for Formula One and was yelling at everyone. And then he went outside through the Mercedes pits, and everyone was really nervous about what he was going to do, and all he did was grab that number 1 spot from Hamilton's car and put it where his car would be. So Formula One is getting interesting, but there's something here that we can all take from this. And I don't think Formula One is getting stagnant. I think right now the season's really getting started, even though Mercedes already won it. Number 1, Red Bull showed a lot of flashes of genius. Verstappen was driving like a madman. And also after that race in Monaco, Red Bull is getting up there again in the rankings. 2, those Ferraris are so fast on a straight line because they have a lot less drag than any other car on the racetrack. The Ferraris are way, way faster on long tracks. The other thing that we saw was Renault pulling it together and finally having a good position and a good race, and you can see some progress there. So Renault's coming back. And also Mercedes is proving not to be invincible, and that they need a better strategy every now and then, and they're gonna make mistakes. And if someone's ready, they can take their position. So Formula One to me is now getting interesting. But anyways, I'm gonna leave you with that. And now the third piece of news is about the gated 458 manual car that we're talking about. This is so funny. There's a group in Texas called European Auto Group. I wish I was making that up. And European Auto Group are the guys responsible for doing a gated manual 430 Scuderia. So they've already done this before. And they're saying that it's not gonna be any easy task because this is the first time it's been done ever on a 458, and that they're probably only going to make 11 cars. So if you're obsessed with manual cars, if you're obsessed with Ferraris, I think that 458 is one of the best cars that they ever made. It's the most Ferrari with a mid-engine. And I think that's the one to take. I don't know how the warranty is going to work, but if you like manual cars and you like crazy sounding cars and very exciting ones, I don't think it's going to get any better than that. So if you guys are interested, make sure to contact those guys at European Auto Group in Texas. Again, not in Europe. In Texas, to get your 458 converted into a manual. So that to me is what's cool this week. That manual gated 458, that's going to be an epic car. And whoever gets it done first, please call me. I'd love to see how that drives. But before we go, and I promise you guys this is going to be the end of it, I just want to say congratulations to my man Luigi317. Luigi and I met when I went to Pennsylvania to meet with Street Speed Mike and Parker, and we were doing their drag races, and I threw up after racing Parker by foot. It was quite embarrassing. But I met Luigi, and Luigi told me, hey man, I'm developing these sunglasses, what do you think about it? And I said, dude, forget about what I'm thinking, just get out there and do it. If you put in the time, put in the work, and get it done, you'll get places. And finally, a couple weeks ago, he came out with his brand, Most Valuable Member, and I have the pleasure of selling these in Shop Swipe for him. They're incredible quality, they're polarized sunglasses with carbon fiber everywhere, and for less than 80 bucks. So, if you want to support my man Luigi, make sure to check out the link down below. Congratulations, my dude. Well done. And I'm going to leave you with dessert before we leave. Why is everyone making a $2 million car now? Why? There's so many of them. Again, the guy that designed the F1 just came out with another $2 million car. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name.
3 million.
It's 3 million. I'm sorry, Sergio just corrected me and said $3 million. Do we really have that many people that have $3 million for a car? I know the amount of wealthy people is increasing in the world because the internet and technology is just making it possible for everyone to get richer and richer and richer. But how many cars do we need? This smells a lot like back in 2008 when the 177 came out and it was a $1.7 million car. When the Reventon came out and it was a $1.7 million car. Back then, no car was over $500,000. This is ridiculous right now. There's the Koenigsegg Jesko, which is $3 million. There's all of the Paganis, which are almost $3 million. There's any other Koenigsegg, which now is about $2.5–3 million. There's the Rimac Concept 2, which is $2 million. There's the Pininfarina Battista, which is $2 million, which is the same car as the Concept 2. There's too many $2 million, $3 million cars right now. That could be telling us that the market's a little inflated. What are your thoughts on that? I'm not gonna bore you anymore. My name is Alejandro. I hope you guys had a good time with this video and learned something today. And hopefully I will too, after I read all of the comments telling me that I don't know anything. Take care, guys.